I procrastinated on putting this conversation out probably for now 3 years. At the time, I initially said to myself, I'll get to it once I finished these different film projects or scripts that I was working on. And it recently came up yesterday whilst I was meditating. I was like, this was such a powerful conversation with Annie, and such a surprising one, because I initially met Annie, and if you don't know who Annie Selfo is, she is currently the head of author relations at Mindvalley, which is one of the biggest personal growth platforms and learning development communities in the world. And I believe she's also currently head of community, or at the time of recording this podcast, she was. And she's incredibly knowledgeable in the space and has had an incredible career. So 3 years ago, when I was in the online community building space, I sent through a message to Annie to jump on a podcast or interview. And she had incredible insights about community building. But during the call, I shared that I was transitioning to film and sort of made it at the decision point when I was interviewing her. During our conversation, I asked her, is there anything that you would most love to share, or anything that you're most passionate about speaking about? And she actually mentioned that she would love to talk about a recent story and the powerful dancing practice that had transformed her life. During this podcast interview, Annie shares many incredible quotes as well as ideas around emotional intelligence, finding what is authentic to us, owning the shadow part of ourselves, and how we can think about challenging emotions such as anger, sadness, that we often push away. And it's a highly entertaining story. So before you jump into this video, I just want to apologize first. Like, the audio quality from my end on the Zoom call was not great. The lighting isn't great, but there are some fascinating ideas and concepts.
It's like one of the stories that speaks about how everyone has a calling in life, I would say, because I remember the first time I actually really felt pulled towards movement was about 7 or 8 years ago. There was this video that got out on Vimeo, and it was a short clip, like 7 minutes, of women who were pole dancing. And the title of the video was Why I Dance. And I remember I was like literally moved and pulled and absolutely magnetized. It was just like, I want to move like them. I want to feel that. It was everything about it was pure. It was like almost artist expression of the soul. And I was like, wow, I really want to, I would love to be able to express in that way. So this was 7 years ago, and I started searching for 7 or 8 years now. I started searching for pole studios that would bring some of that methodology. And I was living in Brazil, then I tried finding these pole studios in Malaysia, then I tried in Italy, then I tried in Estonia. I tried everywhere where I was. I would change pole studios. I would try to find this like different form of movement, and I just didn't find it anywhere until last year. I found a documentary on Netflix. My best friend told me about this because of a background story here, which was one day in the middle of pandemic, I had an intuition out of the blue, like just waking up in bed. And I was just like stretching. It's like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if there was like some form of movement that is yoga but isn't yoga, there is a bit more feminine and a bit more fluid and a bit more cheeky. And I told her, like, I would love to create something like this in my life, but I was like, I'm no one. I've never danced before. I don't have any achievements in the field of dancing or movement to even do this. So this thing was kind of like, I tried to build something around this, but it didn't go the way that I wanted. This was in 2020. And when the documentary came out in 2021, that's when my best friend was like, you have to watch it, because this is exactly everything that you've been talking to me about. And the name of the documentary is Strip Down to Rise Up. And one of the main stars in there, actually the main star, is a woman called Sheila Kelly. And when I ended the documentary, it felt like I finally found my missing piece. Like, this is everything I have been looking for. So I reached out to her on Instagram, And this is something that I've learned from one of my mentors on relationships. Like, if you want people to pay attention to you, imagine like I'm reaching out to a Hollywood star who was starred in a Netflix documentary. Why on earth would she get back to me? I was like, okay, how can I make this valuable for her? So I thought, I am going to invite her to speak at the Mind Valley podcast. Even though I do not run the Mind Valley podcast, I do not get to say or know who is in the Mind Valley podcast. So I was just like, hey, you know, I just watched the documentary. I'm so touched by it. I'm so moved by your mission. And would you be like, just asking, would you be interested in being starred in the Mind Valley podcast? And I said, like, this is not my department, but I would love to talk to my colleague running it and making your name. She got back to me within 24 hours. And she said yes. And then I said, by the way, you know, I'm a community manager and I would love to support you in building this movement around the world, because it's really what resonates with me. And this was March 2021, and that's how this whole process started for me. I started getting closer to Sheila. I started taking her courses on embodiment, really, and started with the S Factor methodology. And this journey ended with, actually went beyond all of our wildest dreams, because Sheila was on stage with me in Tallinn this July at Mind Valley University, and was one of the highest rated speakers of the whole event, which made me extra happy, because I knew that, you know, this was a message that I wanted to bring in, because it had resonated with me, but I got so much appreciation from other women that were like, wow, I'm so glad you brought her here. So that's how it all started. It was actually a 7-minute clip 7 to 8 years ago that moved me to find this methodology. And actually, you know what's crazy? Full circle. Because the women who were in the video were actually, most of them, women who had studied with Sheila, but there was no reference of S Factor movement in that video. It was just like this pole studio in the US that wanted to make one video. So it felt like the full, like, I've been looking for this for 7 years of my life, but finally it happened. And it was exactly the methodology that I was looking for. And it happened at pandemic time, which allowed me to actually take the courses online, because that had never happened before. You could not study S online, you could only do it in the studios offline. So in that sense, the pandemic was like the perfect moment for me to explore this, being on the other side of the world.
Wow. What was the build up or the process to performing on stage? Because you did it incredibly well, and I won't say what happened or what didn't happen, but you were a working professional at Mind Valley within community management. It was completely outside of your role. So I would just love to hear that story, the way that you felt before, during, after.
Yeah, I would say, you know, what we were talking before to me is very important, because it's really the core of the journey and how it started. Being the daughter of migrants meant that throughout my whole life, my main driver was belonging, inclusion, and being accepted. So I learned very quickly kind of like what were the rules of the game, and I was willing to do anything to play the rules right in order to be in the game, you know. And that meant that I mastered the art of being the nicest girl. And, you know, I knew how to make people feel comfortable around me. I knew how to blend very well in any environment that I would put into. And that was the key of success. The key behind a lot of the professional success that I've had, and even the role that I'm in right now. Like, I know what it takes to make people feel seen and heard, because I have been unseen and unheard, and I've been in a process where I desperately wanted to be included. So anyhow, when, you know, things always start breaking down in your life, when you're not acting according to your true self, but you're acting because, you know, someone else said, or society says that you have to be a certain way. So when I started working with S Factor, I started actually working with them because I felt that professionally, there were moments in which I wanted to voice an opinion and I didn't have the strength of voicing it, and I would shrink in my body. So a lot of women are shocked when I say this. I didn't start this because I wanted to impress my boyfriend or be sexy. I didn't care about that. I just cared about, I am so tired of silencing myself. I'm so tired of swallowing in what I want to say just because I am fearful of making people feel uncomfortable. And to me, that meant, oh my God, like that's a massive risk there, because if you make people feel uncomfortable, they're not going to be around you. You're not going to be invited back to situation, events, or opportunities. So when I started doing it started with like, I'm so tired of shutting my own self, and I'm so tired of like really silencing me. And I want to find the courage in my body first. Like I want to stop shrinking. I want to stop contracting every time that I feel like what I have to say or do is going to make someone uncomfortable. And the process of doing that on stage was probably when Sheila said if I would have been, up to this challenge, it felt like a full yes for me in the body right away. And the reason for it was because I'd been so vocal about the fact of I didn't see any role model that would actually demonstrate me that a woman, an empowered woman, can be empowered 360. I've seen examples of women on stage. I've seen examples of women in power positions. I've seen examples also of women owning their bodies, but it's kind of like in that arena where it's like, okay, that's what you do. That's your job. Like, your job is around owning your body or empowering other people around it. I've never seen anyone talk to me about female empowerment in a way that included awakening parts of you that make people uncomfortable. We live in a society that is highly uncomfortable. It's like a paradox because it's very sexualized, but at the same time, very uncomfortable with women owning their bodies, they're owning their sexuality, right? So the process of doing that on stage for me felt like I knew it, that this is going to be the integration of everything that I've been talking about, and I will get to do it in front of an audience that is made of my managers, of my mates, of customers, and these people know me as my professional self. But
what you said, you'd been helping them for a week before,
yeah,
like you'd been taking them through speaking in your usual like community manager, head of community role. Yeah,
they are on the stage, polished girl, my hair made, makeup on like empowering messages, like everything proper, because obviously like that was the context, right? And then I got on stage, and I literally I got on stage with a blazer on, everything was covered by high heels. And then the music starts, and I told you like this was improv. So the only thing that I knew is at some point I was gonna remove the blazer, and I did that. And I think I just, when you can feel the energy in the room just like drop. So people are like, what is happening right now? Like this woman, I'm in a senior leadership position at Mind Valley. It's like this woman who is in a senior managerial position is now stripping in front of her customers. That felt to me, I told Julian before, but it felt like writing through my body, through my movement, my own freedom manifesto. I was like, I am gonna take everything I have been told that I cannot be as a woman. And if I am that, erotic, sensual, that's to be silenced, to be kept private, that belongs to the private field. And for sure, it does not belong to the professional, because people will say that all sorts of things, like she only got there because she slept her way through it, or, all the things that we always say about women who are comfortable with their body. And taking that in my professional realm and doing it in front of and by the way, it was the first time I danced in front of people, like on a stage, not on Zoom. It was the first time I danced with a mixed audience present, because I've only done these with women.
So you've never done it in front of men before? Or
never.
No.
This whole process for me has always been online, and always in the context of the course, which was with other women who were doing the same. So it was a common understanding. To do that in front of 400 people that were hearing about it for the first time, mixed audience, was like, okay. Of course, there was a part of me that was fearful, because it's like, what if they don't understand? What if, I mean, they're not gonna unsee this? What if they don't respect me the same way after? But the reaction that I got, first of all, it was my first standing ovation, which really felt like, wow, take this, society. You know, people work so hard for the moment where they're gonna get a standing ovation and like polish their talk and make sure that everything is timed right and they're making the right jokes. And for me, it was improv on stage.
Yeah, so it wasn't even choreographed, just to make it clear.
No,
like, none.
no, not choreographed at all. It was just like if you have to be present with your feelings, you cannot be in your head about what's going to be the next step that you're going to take, or, oh my God, am I on the beat or off the beat, or I forgot this part of the choreography. That takes you off the flow. This was like my form. I always say that it's my prayer. It's like my soul expressing through music and movement. So it's like the closest thing there is to me to a meditation in movement. So you feel and move according to what's true for you in that moment. And to do that in that context and get a standing ovation and get so many people that cried, you know, like they cried because they felt the emotions. They felt that that was empowering and freeing for me, and that in a way, you know, it was, I was doing it for me, but I was also doing it for everyone else who wants to have that courage. It's like, it is possible. And I've always believed in this quote that says, you cannot be what you cannot see. And I hadn't seen a woman doing that before, but I know that not in that context, like not in a context that had nothing to do with eroticism or you know, it's like a personal growth conference basically, and then all of a sudden you see this stripping performance and there's a pole on stage. What? I had never seen that before, so for me, I know that it meant a lot to many women, and actually many men as well came and talked to me, and it's just they saw a version that I think they just hadn't seen before, that you can be both, you can be all, like you get to decide what you are, you can be professional, you can be respected, you can be powerful, and you can be that. And that for me, feeling it in my body and seeing 400 people actually really getting it and stopping me and talking to me about the impact of that moment for them for the next 2 to 3 weeks was, I don't know, miraculous. I don't know how else to explain it. I know there's, you know, a lot of people, obviously they see that as kind of like the end point. And as everything in life, we always think like, oh, but I'm not that.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's like, yeah, I wasn't that either.
Yeah.
I would have never thought, are you crazy? It's like, this is my dad's worst nightmare. It's like every dad's worst nightmare. Stripper. And that's it. Well, it's like all of the nice titles I've achieved, and now I strip down on a stage. So many people were confused about it on my Instagram. Like, what's your job exactly? You know, like this job, what is this now? So it's like I wasn't that person either. And there's and of course, I'm also aware that I'm a young woman. I do fit the standards of what most society deems as attractive. So it's very different. Also, the fact that I'm doing it in this point and age, and not maybe later on. My teacher is 60, by the way, so she did the same thing on 60, and people absolutely lost their minds because they're like, wow, you do not get to see a 60-year-old woman on a strip, you know, spinning around the pole. You certainly don't get to see that. So it was a break of paradigm, one after the other. And for me, it's like, I know so many people in the audience were asking the question of how do I do this without the judgment, the fear. I understand all of it, and I wasn't that person just 1 year ago. I would have never thought anything like this would be possible. There is magic that happens when you start owning your emotions and owning your expression. And I tell you from other women that I've seen, and if anyone sees the documentaries on Netflix, Strip Down, Rise Up, you will see this. The main woman that is portrayed is not a woman that is slim, is not a woman that is in her 30s, but you see her beauty and erotic power awaken through the journey. And you start understanding that beauty in a feminine body is not what we've been told that it is. And it really, beauty starts appearing and shining through whenever a woman has the courage of moving in her fullest expression, independently of your age or your shape. And slowly your brain starts rewiring around what beauty even looks like. So I know a lot of people were like, okay, she did that, but I'm not that. And that's, to me, it's like, yeah, we are not that until we allow ourselves.
How did you notice the difference week by week? Did you suddenly feel like this spurt of like, I feel confident in myself, or was it a continual up and down process? Was it like a moment it clicked, or how did you find the process or the journey to that point?
So definitely a journey that lasted 1 year, and this is to me very important, and it's still ongoing. The day before my Valley University started, I actually cried for 3 to 4 hours because I had silenced myself again. There was just a misunderstanding that had happened at work, and I felt like I'm not going to say anything, even though it was really hurting me, because inside of me I still carried part of the story of like, what I have to say is going to be uncomfortable. It's like, you know, like it's not going to be welcomed well. Why create conflict? So I've always been so good at avoiding conflict at the cost of, you know, you avoid the war outside, but you maintain the wars inside. And that was the story of my life. So it's like, it's a process that still goes on, and it's not like it ended or like, oh my God, I danced on stage, now I'm the most confident person on the world. It started, my first realization was when my teacher pointed out that I had the thing that she called the plaster smile on. And I would go about life always like with my plaster smile on, because my smile was the way in which I made sure that people would feel comfortable around me. And you see even my whole Instagram, when I realized this, I only had pictures of me smiling. I didn't have any other facial expression other than my freaking plaster smile on. And that was the smile of the nice girl who wants to make sure that there's nothing about her that makes people uncomfortable. And if she gets angry, or if she gets sad, or if she's upset, she's not going to show that, because why would other people have to deal with their emotions? So that was the beginning of it for me. It's like, fuck, I've done this my whole life, and I am tired. I'm tired of this plaster smile. And the thing about movement, people sometimes think, oh, it's just dance, or but it's not. All of the work is grounded on somatics. Movement, breath, and sound are 3 of the gateways that allow to release trauma that is still stored in the body. Like, trauma lives in the body, stored in your tissues. And that's why we start having like, oh, why is my lower back always hurting? Why are my shoulders always tense? It's the buildup of years and years and years of moments where you've denied yourself, where you silence yourself. It's like your body starts literally taking the shape of your story of life. So when you start moving in ways that you've never moved before, and you start stretching in ways that you've never stretched before, you start allowing yourself to your cells rewire. So this was interesting, like the cognitive process of realizing that my plaster smile was on, and that I was no longer okay with that, and that was my motivation to like even continue the journey, was sustained by a cellular and like a process in the body, in my tissues, that was a process of expansion and rewiring of both beliefs and tissues and connections in the body. So what was happening is that the more in life I kept denying myself, the more my body would rebel against me, because it was no longer okay with this. So I remember there was one day at work, I was coming through 3 days of very high stress moments. We were in the midst of an event and I just had my plaster smile on all the time. This was months ago. And I literally couldn't move from the couch. My body was like paralyzed almost. It was like, I just couldn't move anymore, because I kept for 3 days pushing down everything that I was feeling in order to maintain the facade at work. And that was one of the biggest moments of realizations for me, because I was like, okay, I know better than this now. I have tools for this. I'm not gonna stay here like binge watching through Netflix, which I had done for hours, unable to move. I'm gonna put some music and I'm gonna move through this and I wanna see what comes up. And when I did that, it was, I would say, the first time that I met the darkness in me, and the first time that I like allowed myself to even acknowledge the fact that there is all of this side of me that is highly uncomfortable, highly provocative, highly, the opposite of a nice, comfortable girl that makes everybody feels comfortable around that. There is this huge part of me that it's the opposite. It's like I like to provoke, I like to poke people with my questions, I just like to play with the lines of discomfort. That was the first time I met this part of me, and the whole process after it was a process of acceptance and rewriting the script of, for example, the emotion of anger, which is my predominant one when I dance. And it's an emotion that I pushed down my whole life. I reframed it as anger is my fire. Anger is what happens when something that I really value gets disrespected. Anger is the energy that moves you through obstacles. Anger is the energy that allows you to build. Nobody who built anything that changed this world did it in a way from bliss. It's like, and I want to do something about it because it frustrates me, because it is wrong, because it is not the way it should be. That's anger. Anger can be incredibly constructive. So I started meeting these parts of me, which I'd never accepted before, through movement and exploring them and seeing, wow, this whole force that I kept pushing down my whole life, it's actually my biggest strength. And the reason why people love me is because I'm passionate. And you can see it whenever I start talking about something that I really believe in. I get all of this like fire and passion, and that it's the same emotion that sometimes we call anger, but we can just call fire. So in owning all of these parts of me, and in seeing the value that they have in my life.
Straight after that, Annie, just how did your body feel? Did your body feel like after you did that movement pattern? Because you were basically lying in bed, or lying in bed watching Netflix, feeling completely like you didn't want to move. What did you feel like after you'd done the movement, and how? Because it's tricky to move from that state sometimes to the other state that you got into, and to take the courage or to listen to, like, for someone to listen to their intuition,
I wrote a lot after it because I really felt I was going through a breakthrough, and I felt my body had kind of like a rebirth. So all I wrote in my notebook after that specific instance, and you can, if you don't feel like moving, that's how most of the times I don't feel like moving. It's just like because I'm lazy or whatever. You just start, even just from the breath, that's like the core of the movement. Even just like your chest goes forward with an inhale and it goes back with an exhale. That's how I started moving. And then music takes you to other places if you're willing to explore. And the body just felt like, wow. Can you imagine finally allowing yourself to meet the parts of you that you've always pushed down, and in one moment you're like, okay, there's darkness in me, and I'm actually okay with it. Like, for the first time in my life, I'm okay with it. And as I said, like, I call it darkness, but it's a reframe. Even my sadness, for example, it's another very strong emotion that I have in my dance very often. My sadness is the root of the empathy that I have for the world. I can only provide the spaces that I provide in my work, I can only make people feel seen and heard, because I have not been fearful of being in touch with my own sadness. Whenever we fear our emotions, and when we're not in touch with them, we just cannot stand other people feeling them. We cannot stand other people being in pain, because we haven't confronted our own pain. So we try to fix the other person, to move the other person, to be like, can you just stop making me uncomfortable with all this? So sadness, it's like, nobody thinks that sadness is an erotic emotion, but it can be. You can move erotically through your sadness. And to me, it's not something that stays in the dark. It's something that, to me, it's the source of my light. Same thing that I just said with the anger. So meeting these parts of me and finally accepting them, and finally being like, wow, all of these things that I always thought people would never want to see about me, that make people uncomfortable, are actually the one thing that inspires them the most. And that's what happens even on the stage. Because everybody, nobody's going to be inspired just because you're a bubbly person, like, that's accepted. People get inspired when your authenticity is breaking the rules, and you still feel like, oh my God, and she still did it.
It's true, because that inspiration brings change, right? If you're not changing everything and you're doing what's acceptable to everyone, then nothing's changing.
Yeah. I don't know at this point whether we said this before when we were not recording or not, but to me, there's this quote that I couldn't stop thinking about, which is, you cannot be what you cannot see. That's why it's so important to have different representations of how a human looks like, how a woman looks like on TV, in the stories that we tell. And to me, that's what I mean by the inspiration. I really, in that moment, I chose on stage to embody something that it's rarely seen, which is a woman who is in her erotic energy and is professional at the same time. And I will tell you one more thing. That is the source of my power in my professional too. And it's not dissociated, because whenever you shut down one part of you, there's not like you just shut down that part, you just tune down the volume everywhere. So the more I was resisting all of this energy in me that wanted to be expressed in the form it wants to express, that was detracting from my professional success. That was detracting from how much, I would shine. And people see this, like, everybody, there are people that have seen me in my journey in Mind Valley for 4 years on stage in front of everyone. The first time after the pandemic, I wasn't even dancing, not even after my performance. He just saw me presenting on stage, and he was like, oh my God, like, what has happened? You have grown so much. And I haven't done any public courses speaking that I hadn't done before. Nothing else has changed, with the exception of this practice of mine. And all of a sudden, my executive team will start asking me to be on meetings that I wouldn't even have been before, because they were like, no, we want you with your energy, with your voice, to talk about this. Even if it wasn't about my own department, we want you there. And that's what I mean, like, this energy that we keep pushing down, there is the erotic energy is creative energy. Like, it's literally the energy that creates life. So it's like the biggest creative energy that we have. And we keep pushing it down. And it's not about going to work with a choker on. That's not expressing, like, I mean, if you want, by all means do so. But it's leaving that energy and having the confidence of letting it exude in your life. That started like creating more and more success in my professional realm, because people see a person who's not afraid of saying what she wants to say, of being who she wants to be. And that energy is contagious. Everybody wants it. And imagine, even in a workplace, how much money can you save your company if you're not scared of voicing an opinion that is different from what everyone else is thinking, and maybe you're pointing to a risk that nobody's thinking about? That could be millions. It's like the silencing of what you think permeates everything in your life. The silencing of who you are permeates everything in your life. So it's not dissociated. And this is the thing that has been driving me insane, because so many women tell me like, I don't want to be anymore this woman who just like stands in the corner and doesn't say what she thinks or tries to hide herself all the time. And it's like, I know, but that takes some courage in embracing this part of you that everybody always told you that it should be kept under control, which is our erotic energy. To me, at least, that's been my journey.
It's the creative like life force it is. And when two things that you did in one go that people find feel the most shame or sometimes guilt around is public speaking, like voicing your perspective, getting people to pay attention. Like public speaking, people often fear more than death. And then combining that with embracing your sexuality fully and completely. It's like, and shame and guilt, what they do is they just keep us quiet, right? So it's like you just obliterate or dissolve those emotions and let them go, then you're going to be seen, you're going to be heard, you're going to be more confident in that place. Yeah, that's amazing, Annie.
Felt like take everything as a woman you've been told that you cannot be in the public eye and middle finger it. That's how we felt. It was like flipping the script of everything I've always been educated to believe. And that's why this resonated so much, because it's like we talk so much about success on your own terms. We talk so much about freedom in your own terms, in particularly in this space. But how much of it are we really doing it? Are we actually really doing it? And this process of flipping the script for me is the most important part. It's like you actually do get to decide. And I remember one of my mentors told me, because I was scared before doing this. Of course, there was fear in me, and the biggest fear was, this book, I can't make people unsee me after this. Like, what if they don't respect me in the same way? Like, that was my biggest fear. And it stems from my desire to, make it in the world and to prove the world of how good I was, so I would be included and I would succeed and all of it in life. So he said to me, Annie, if you carry yourself with respect, you will not have, there will be no other option, there will be no other space for people to carry you with, to look at you with disrespect. This is not about what people will think about you. This is the part of you that is still judging yourself. And if you carry yourself with the utmost respect as you do it, there will be no other option but for people to respect you in it. And some of the words that people told me after the performance that I didn't expect, where you carried yourself with so much grace, with so much dignity, you were so empowered. Like, these words, we never associate them with a woman dancing around the pole or stripping. It's like, we never think there's dignity in that, do we? Like, no, it's like, oh my God, like, poor woman. We never talk about the grace. We never talk about the power there is in there. We always talk about this diminishing and disregarding this expression. So it really felt like, oh my God, people got it. And I remember this one man who told me, at the beginning, I was just mesmerized and I just thought, oh my God, she's so beautiful. But actually, after a bit, all I felt was how proud of you I am. And for a man to say that to a woman who is dancing erotically, so it's like, second brain is on, it's like
hind brain activated.
It's like, for a man to experience that and go beyond just the like sexual arousal, which was at no point the whole purpose of the performance. I never danced for people. I danced for me. It's not to arouse anyone. I completely dissociated this practice from bringing up arousal. But anyhow, for a man who's never heard about this, has not necessarily done the work around this specific practice, to see a woman stripping down, dancing erotically, and to still be able to get that this whole thing was not about his arousal. This whole thing was about me, my declaration of freedom, the courage that it took for me to be there and actually own this part of me and I be who I wanted to be, not what the whole world wants me to be. And to tell me I moved from thinking how beautiful you were up there to just feeling this immense sense of pride because you made it happen. That was like, okay, you know what? Then it worked. People got it. That to me, like to hear this from a man meant everything. And that's when I knew like my mentor was right, because I carry myself with respect about this, people will respect me because I will give them no other option. And that was very this whole day was the biggest day of my life. I know it's the biggest day of my life.
That's beautiful. Now, if someone was listening to this or watched the video and was like, I'm inspired, I want to learn from Annie, how could they join your program, or how many people are you taking on with your program? Is it still in the beta, like still adapting and still testing things out? Yeah.
It's beta. So right now, the first batch I'm only going to take a maximum of 5 people because I want to work one-on-one initially. But hopefully this will evolve. So the best way would be Instagram. Right now is the place where I talk the most about it. So it's Annie Selfo. My name is my handle. And the first program will probably most likely be on the theme of undoing the nice girl, which was the core of my initial process. But I really wanted to evolve into leadership. So we will start there. From letting go of all of the things that we think we should be to please the world, and then moving from there, I'd love to see all of this empowerment actually be translated into impact in the world, and as I said, more women being able to take this energy into boardrooms, into executive meetings, into new partnerships, wherever it is. Just like take this energy and set the room on fire with it. That's my wish, what I would like to see, where I would like this to go, and how I would want things to evolve.
Anything you feel like you haven't said that you wish you had said
about this? The thing that feels the strongest for me right now is just I really want to talk about the compassion that I feel for whoever doesn't feel like they can, or this is allowed for them, or that this is going to stand in the way of everything they've ever done in their life. It doesn't have to be a public declaration. There's this one quote I love from one of my favorite authors. Her name is Glennon Doyle, and she says that her life started changing when she stopped being the peacekeeper, and instead she started being the peacemaker. And that sense of the word where I said earlier, like how many times we avoid conflict on the outside, but we allow an internal war to eat us alive inside. And that's the same concept for me. Is like, how much longer are you gonna be willing to keep things as they are instead of make things the way that you want them to be? And this is scary process at the beginning. As I said, it doesn't have to be a public one. A woman can have this for herself. You don't have to share it with anyone if you don't want to. But there's so much power that can really fuel the rest of your life, everything that you care for, the moment that you allow yourself to let that full expression of you come to the surface, when you allow yourself to meet these parts of you, and when you allow yourself to just discover the woman that you are and not the woman that everyone around you wants you to be. So compassion for whoever feels like, fuck, I'm not that person. That's how it all starts for all of us. But there will be a point, I hope, for all of us where we get tired of our own bullshit, and we get tired of all of the excuses and all the justifications that we have. And we just decide that, okay, it's about time for me to choose myself for once, not the rest of the world.